And let me give you a program note. Tomorrow, Frank Venucio, Editor-Chief, New York Analysis of Policy and Government, his latest, What Really Happened in Wahong. And then Kelly Nelson, our world-famous researcher, she's going to be here with her latest. And I got to check and see, Tomas, do I have a guest or not? I'm sorry?
Such a funny guy.
I do. Okay. And I assume it will be Kimberly Dvorak, okay? Award-winning national security, border security investigative reporter for TV, radio, and print media. She is the senior foreign policy advisor for the Committee for Responsible Foreign Policy, TV correspondent for CW6 News San Diego, as well as One American News Network. Her website is The KD Report. And she is streaming live right now on Facebook. Kimberly, how are you?
I'm doing fine. How about yourself, Chuck?
Pretty good. Hey, you got back in time. Were you at the CPAC?
No. I went back to go see what I could do to fix California. I don't know. You guys got all hosed up back there.
Well, I heard the leak, and it's dripping just a tiny bit since you left, okay? So you did fix it. Hey, I'll tell you what, it's interesting. You know, we're going to talk about migrants, all right? And we'll start out, well, first off, I'm going to inform you again here that the fact that, let me find the thing here, yes. President Biden, you like that? President Biden is set to meet with the Mexican President Obrador this afternoon as we speak, amid the migrant crisis and all kinds of good things. I'm looking at, they want to start up the CARO program. Kimberly can talk about that. 600,000, 800,000 Mexican, Central American immigrants used to come in here and work, but that was picking the crops. And then they go home, and then they come back, and then they go home. But you have a report about Sweden. Which one do you want to get into also?
Yeah, let's talk about what's going on in Sweden. I think that, you know,
Right.
when we're looking at migrant or illegal immigration and things of those sorts, the United States usually has been on the forefront. I mean, we're obviously the largest humanitarian country on the planet. We tend to help people. You know, if there's a tsunami coming through town, who do they call first? America. And we follow through and we help them out. I think that ironically now we're seeing other countries in Europe and elsewhere that are looking at the migrant and illegal immigration problems and how that is affecting their bottom line, and how their citizens are paying taxes for people that don't necessarily even want to be in their country. They're just looking for that, coveted, subsidized housing, free health care, the rest of us all have to pay for. So in Sweden, they were one of the countries that took the largest number of migrants per capita. And they've taken so far like 1.2 or 1.3 million people into their country. And what they found is they have since commissioned a report to look into see, if they're benefiting as a country. And some of the statistics that came out are very shocking. So in Sweden specifically, people who are raping other Swedes, are these migrants at higher levels, and not just like higher levels, but we're talking significantly higher levels, like 60, 70.
Let me give the listener you have a total of 3,039 convicted rapists, all right? And that was a study that was finished February 22nd.
Yeah.
It was 59.3% of the convicts came from migrant backgrounds.
Yep.
Let me ask you a sexist question, okay? Are Swedish women more attractive than anywhere else? I mean, that seems very high, doesn't it?
Well,
Are they naive, or what's the story?
what I would think is that most Europeans are very opening, and it's a much more diverse population in Europe than a lot of places in the United States. They want to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. However, it's the Swedish women who are bearing the front of these rapes, and a government that's not there necessarily looking after them. They also found in that same study that migrants are taking food stamps, free health care, housing subsidies at much larger numbers. They're coming into the country with zero educational skills. So now they're going to be a ward of the state indefinitely. And this just isn't first generation migrants that have come into these countries. We're talking first and second generation migrants that are doing the exact same thing. Now in Europe, they tend to be getting a lot more of people from Muslim background, and people in Sweden, women, they tend to wear shorts when it's warm in summer. And for a lot of these people, that's a sin against Allah. So they feel it's not only their right, but their duty to teach these lessons to these Western women, which begs the question, well, if they are in so much disagreement with the country they've moved to, why did they move to that country in the first place?
Yeah. The other interesting thing in this report is that the Swedish newspaper Expressen, they probably pronounce it a little bit differently, probably like the Pink Panther, Expressen reported that almost every man convicted of gang rape. Now, see, there's a new word added into the equation.
Yeah. Gang
rape. You hear that from like MS-13 and things like that. Mm-hmm. Is that also attributed to Muslims?
Yeah, they're actually doing the same thing. I mean, on this show, we've talked about this for a number of years now. And up until now, we didn't really have any kind of studies that were looking at these specific issues. Now we do have studies, and it's confirming what we were talking about years ago on this front. You've got clashing civilizations, and Christianity is far different than the Muslim religion as it sits right now. And when you look at, it doesn't matter. I mean, it could be journalists, let's say, that went to Egypt to cover the Arab Spring and found themselves in the middle of a gang rape, and then were told by their mainstream media networks that you're not allowed to talk about that horrific thing that happened to you because we want the Arab Spring to come out and it's a great thing and they're rejoining the world and kumbaya and all of this. But there are many down ballot issues that are affecting women in particular, because men in those religions are able to marry multiple wives. Well, in this country, in most countries around the world, westernized countries, that's not something that is of the mainstream thought process. So what they're doing is they're taking what they think is theirs, and they're not taking into consideration. And I also want to stipulate, this is definitely not all people immigrating from Africa and the Middle East and other nations that have that practice these types of religions. That's not what we're saying here. We're just saying that it is a large number of them, and Western cities and countries around the world are standing up and taking notice.
You know what? Except I don't think the United States is standing up and taking notice.
No.
Because we admit over, I think it's almost close now to 2 million people every year legally through our immigration system, okay? Sweden just started, and in this report, you say Sweden issued 1.2 million residency permits to new migrants in 10 years.
Yeah.
All right? In 10 years. And look at what they're doing already, the problems they're having.
Well, and they're a small country, so let's give them that they're a small country. But as of today, 1/5 of that country, 20%, are now foreign born. They aren't even born in that country. So 1/5 of their population are foreign nationals. They aren't people that were born and raised. And what we're seeing, and I think that what the researchers and scientists were looking at when they're looking at these issues, usually when people immigrate to a country, yeah, sure, the first generation struggles a bit. They work really crappy jobs, or they struggle to pay the bills and all that. But they work really hard because they want their kids to have that better life. and in Sweden in particular, they're not getting that down the line. And to a fair extent in this country as well, we used to have people who immigrated here and they worked really hard and they would scoff at taking any kind of public assistance whatsoever. And you're now in this country, you've got more second generation people who are not going to do better than their parents. And it's because they're taking all of this public assistance.
Well, and in this country, Kimberly, it seems as though certain parts of our government, they want you to take that assistance.
Yep.
And I have a good friend that calls it, keeping you on the plantation. You're dependent upon them to take care of you, and all of a sudden it becomes probably easy. Maybe I can have a better job, but look, hey, I don't have to do anything. Look what I can get. And I was pointing out last week on this program that remember when Obamacare came along, Kimberly?
Yep.
And you had to pay for Obamacare if you were an American, and now Biden is giving free insurance to anybody that comes into the country.
Yeah. And especially, let's not forget about the COVID infection too, because a lot of the doctors you're going to, they're charging you if you have insurance. They're charging you for the pleasure of getting the vaccine. You're in this country illegally, you go straight to the front of the line. They're not even worried about that, which makes you kind of wonder that, we're seeing this huge influx of migrants now crossing into the United States, being picked up by Border Patrol, back to catch and release. Here's your date, come back in 10 years, never, whatever, we're not going to check up on you. And, here are the list of doctors where you can go visit and see if you can get your vaccine and make sure that you're, medically fit. And I'd like to, find out how many single moms out there would really like to be a part of that program before we're actually offering it to people that, are coming in this country, not by doing it correctly and waiting in line, how the majority of people that come to this country legally and lawfully, they wait their turn in line. They're allowing these people to skip the line and go straight for, here, we're gonna give you all the free things you need, whether it be food, college education. With DACA now, they're going to be offering that, and you've also got K through 12, education. And it's a tired argument that I hear when I engage in these types of arguments with liberals out there. Well, they're paying taxes and they're A, B, and C, and I'm like, okay, well, so you're telling me they've got 3 kids, roughly, and this is lowball figure, $10,000 a year per kid. So you're telling me that they're paying more than $30,000 in taxes per year just for education. Forget about the health care, forget about the housing and all of the other issues. But you want me to believe that they are self-sustaining people coming to this country. These migrants and refugees and political asylum seekers are the hardest people that this country can do to bring into this country, because they tend to be lifers. They tend to be living on this the rest of their life. They're very expensive to take care of.
And why would they want to go back
to
where they came from?
Yeah.
But here's the thing too, and Trump mentioned this at CPAC. He said he was talking about the Keystone Pipeline.
Yeah.
And he says, you see these figures, 17,000 jobs lost. He said it's closer to 21,000 and more. And so now, as we speak today in this program, here Biden's getting ready to meet with Obrador, Mexico, and start up the Medicare program again. And now think about this, 21,000 lost their job on the Keystone, right? And as of last week, the unemployment was about 17 million, I think.
Yep.
So then here we got 800,000 coming in on the Vaquero program. So true, that's not a million, but it's 800,000. So what's the unemployment going to be now?
But you're also to expect then that all of these 800,000 that are coming in are going to leave. Mm-hmm. That's a very big exception, because a lot of them won't leave, so they will stay here. And the reason why Mexico and the Mexican president and their government down there, they want to reopen these types of programs, because they're seeing the fact that when President Trump said, okay, you're coming to this country, you've got to stay in Mexico while we process your papers before you can come to this country. They're seeing firsthand in Mexico that now this has become a pretty expensive problem, something that Mexico can't even afford any longer. So what can we do to push more of them north? That's what you're seeing. Nobody wants to actually talk about the issue that's at hand here, and that it's certainly sad that there are a lot of poor people around the world. Unfortunately, America cannot help any of them, and I'm actually in favor of helping our neighbors. And if by that it means bringing our troops home and getting out of the Middle East and letting Russia and Europe to deal with what's going on in the Middle East and save trillions, well, let's take that money, we can cut it in half, save the taxpayers 50%, and let's start working on making Mexico a lot more like Canada.
And I'll tell you what, when the Kyoto program was going on, it was during World War II, and guess what?
Men were
Very
overseas.
patriotic. And you know what that meant? We had a lot of people that were out of work. All right, we didn't have enough people to do it. That's why the women started working in all the factories.
Yep.
But they would work and they would pick the grapes and whatever, and go back and then come back. We're going to take a break. Kimberly Dvorak, Senior Foreign Policy Advisor for the Committee for Responsible Foreign Policy, and her website, thekdreport.com. Well, you think about the Vaquero program and the way the immigration is going right now and everything, and I think it all boils down, Kimberly, to H.R. 1. Get as many votes as you can. Get rid of no voter ID ever. Wow. Have you looked at H.R. 1?
Yeah, we talked about this a little earlier, or few weeks ago. It actually, I think, got bumped off of YouTube because they didn't want us talking about what's really in the bill. Yeah, the Democrats, I mean, you can look at this, with all of the DACA students that are kids that are in college that are or DACA, that they're going to be able to have a very quick way path to citizenship, which means they're going to be able to vote. The President Trump yesterday spoke at CPAC saying that the only goal through that wasn't just to have the people that are in the country currently put on a pathway to citizenship and allowing them to jump the line again before people who actually paid the fees, paid to get the medical exams, paid for the backgrounds and all of those things. But the ultimate goal is to bring their entire families over. Mom and dad, grandma, grandpa, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, you name it, they want them here. And to do that would mean that would almost ensure that there would be a permanent Democrat voting base. So, I mean, it's very, it's fairly, transparent that they're wanting to go out and do this. And in an effort to...
it's like, remember who brung you here. Vote for us. And that's the way it works,
Yeah. And there are a lot of states now that are like on the cusp of becoming, the dominant, population in those countries will be Hispanic. And traditionally, those voters voted for the Democrat Party. However, we did see in this last election that a lot of them actually turned to President Trump, because it turns out that even people that immigrate here legally through all the proper channels, they're not really for this open borders because they see it's their jobs that are on the line. They see that their healthcare costs are going up. They see that their kids aren't even in school right now because of Democratic politicians. So they're wising up to that fact. But it's a big unknowable. It's like going to court or settling out of court. You never know how a jury's going to come back, but if you settle out of court, you know how the outcome will be.
Well, I'll tell you what, talking about their kids not going to school and stuff like that, unless maybe you're a dignitary, they just caught the guy in San Francisco, the teachers union there, putting his child in a private school, but yet saying you can't have school. Boy, I'll tell you.
Must have been a really smart valedictorian contender.
And I'll tell you something, it surprises me, when Ajo Cortez, she actually jumping on Biden, for reopening the cages. They're putting the children in cages again. Those cages that Obama
One
built.
person's cage is another person's Hilton, so just look at it that way.
Well, Biden, I think, would say one person's cage is another person's castle. Yeah. Well, I tell you, just about out of time. Great report as usual. And I want you to go to thekdreport.com, thekdreport.com. You'll see this later. post it on there, and then Kimberly will be back next week, I'm sure, right?
All righty.
She's practicing already. Kimberly Dvorak, spell it